and vegans wake up. Open up your eyes. Your country needs you. Hope you realize our government is abusing its power and authority, and it is having adverse effects on the whole country. It is time for us to take a stand. After all, this is our native land. That is why I came back to sing, to expose the wicked things they're perpetrating. It is only time for the self-destruct. Greed and power is the TNT. The purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All the scheming, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall. Minister, I'm like a dictator. If with him you don't agree, you can't progress in your country. Our government has no respect for the business community. No dialogue, they only causing loss in this meeting. Taxing the poor ones who have no money, while their friends live in luxury. As a family and the Prime Minister and the young boys think they're on Antigua. It is only time for the self-destruct. Greed and power is the TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All this scheming, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall. Island and victimization to those who express dissatisfaction with the way this government's squandering this country's revenue, accepting no accountability for the underhand things they does do, ostracizing those who say they are over, and rewarding their friends some with knifewood. Hurricane mash up the clay and Halcyon. I oppose them, so they come and take back the land. It is only time for the self-destruct. Greed and power is the TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All the scheming, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall. I am the boss. Come on the airport. Ask God and Marshall. Look what I did to Percy. He was standing in the way of my daughter's future. So I demoralized him with the aid of the newspaper. But we tolerate this man's mentality. Will my people be bothered by duty-free? If we don't remove them in the next election, it will be a target for the future generation. So I'll leave them alone, let them self-destruct. Greed and power is their TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All this stealing, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting has no respect for the business community. No dialogue, they only causing loss in this screening. Taxing the poor ones who have no money, while their friends live in luxury. As a family and the Prime Minister, and them young boys think they're on Antigua. It is only time for the self-destruct. Greed and power is their TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All this stealing, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall. Unprecedented corruption rampant throughout the island, and victimization to those who express dissatisfaction with the way this government squandering this country's revenue, accepting no accountability for the underhand things they just do, ostracizing those who say they are no good, and rewarding their friends some with knifewood. Hurricane mash up the place at Halcyon. I oppose them, so they come and take back the land. It is only time for the self-destruct. Greed and power is their TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All the scheming, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall. I am the boss. Come on the airport. Ask God and Marshall. Look what I did to Percy. He was standing in the way of my daughter's future. So I demoralized him with the aid of the newspaper. But we tolerate this man's Will my people be bought out by duty-free? If we don't remove them in the next election, it will be a dark day for the future generation. So I will leave them alone, let them self-destruct. Greed and power is their TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All this killing, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall.
What? This government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall. Marching orders. Marching orders. King Short out of Antigua. The handwriting is on the wall. The purpose in government was just for the bucks. This government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall. Good evening. It's good to be a Guyanese. It's good to be a West Indian. If for nothing else, it's for that kind of music and that kind of lyrics could only come from the West Indies. I love Africa, sir. You all hear me say it? In fact, the Kaiso start in Africa. We bring it with we. But we do something with it here and made it into what it is. That kind of lyrics can come from Uganda. With all due respect. It can't come from Calcutta. It can't come from Madeira. It can't come from Hong Kong. It got to come from the Caribbean, of which we in Guyana is an integral part. I love being West Indian. I love being Guyanese. The handwriting is on the wall. What? This government must fall. This government must fall. As them big man would say. Repeat.
It is only time for the self-destruct. Greed and power is their TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All this scheming, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall.
What up?
Unprecedented corruption rampant throughout the island, and victimization to those who express dissatisfaction with the way this government's wandering this country's revenue, accepting no accountability for the underhand things they does do, ostracizing those who say they are noble, and rewarding their friends some with knifewood. Hurricane mash up neglect and Halcyon. I oppose them, so they come and take back the land. It is only time for the self-destruct. Greed and power is their TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All the scheming, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise.
Writing ladies on the wall. Up, up, what up, whoop, whoop, whoop. We're going down the road. We're going down the road to September 4th. We're going down the road. We're going down the road. This government must what? Fall. And we are doing our part. They're going to self-destruct, but we got to push them. We got to push them. 3 months to go. 3 months to go. And we're fighting. We're fighting to win an election, but we're also fighting for free and fair elections. The old-time Marxists say it's dialectics. We in the West Indies, we say, you know, it's chaos in order and order in chaos. Professor Rex Nettleford, only we in the West Indies could understand how you're fighting to win an election and fighting for free and fair elections at the same time. You see, we operate in different levels at the same time. We have to. Because when you're on the plantation, or you're in the bongyard, the nigger yard, the plantation, when you're there, as the Indian brothers would say, you know, black man say when you're dead, Indian man say when you're dead. When you're dead, you're fighting to survive, but you're also fighting to get out. We make dialectics, not Karl Marx, not Hegel, and them. Is we make the dialectics because we've been there before Marx and Hegel. When you're there, when you're there in there, you're fighting to survive, but you're planning still because you're fighting to get out at the same time. Are you understand that? We're going down the road. We're going down the road. Never mind the noise. Never mind the noise. Then is what? Use a market girl. The noise in the market won't determine the sale. Yeah. 3 balance for $1,000. Callaloo. 2 bundle for $1,500. Yeah. And a lady there quiet, she sell for $50 less. And she'll get the sale. She'll get the sale. We got market man coming on here tonight. Tacuma Ogunseye gonna be here tonight. They already pad up. Rohit Kanhai is all WPA team tonight. Rocky is all WPA team tonight. Because remember, we're doing this thing together. Good evening to my sister Raquel Gentle. Colored. Mr. Pillam Charlie. Granddaughter. Good evening to you all. Yes, that is not the same. Not the nice, I tell you, not the side, not the nice. I tell you the same. Don't bother with the nice because the handwriting is on the wall. Wherever you all are joining us from, Canada, New York, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Chicago. I see my partner here from, my partner at Swank, here from Texas. Miami, make one Grenadian friend. When she ready for wrong up, she mouth, she not say Miami. Go all the way there now. I'm in Miami. Those of you who are joining us from Miami, good evening. Good evening to you. If you're joining us from Long Island or Short Island, you'll get all them islands there in New York. New York. Good evening to all of you. Those of you who are joining us from the south. From the south. Atlanta, Georgia, South Carolina. Good evening to all of you. And of course, from our Caribbean, from Bahamas in the north, right down to Trinidad and Grenada, Piti, Martinique, and Carriacou. Don't say Grenada. Grenada, Piti, Martinique, and Carriacou. And of course, those of you in French Guyana and Dutch Guyana, Cayenne, and Paramaribo. Don't worry, the Paramaribo. That is for when you're writing the Queen's English. We turn it into Paramaribo. Paramaribo. The handwriting is what? On the wall. Good evening, Guyana. Good evening. Good night to you. Asha, my countryman, boxman, Asha Lee, slick people, slick boxing front, them slick Ashy. Then you know them slick people up so a boxing front. Mr. Ashley and all of you who are joining us from England, United Kingdom, London, Great Britain, plenty name, one country, plenty name. Well, no, it's morning, it passed midnight there. Good morning to you all. Very special good evening to the people in Bartica, and those of you who are there in Region 8, Region 9, a special good evening to you. Buxton, man, you all, oh God, mister, you all, good night, good evening, every night, man, behave by yourself, no, man. Why you all so racial? Oh, man. Oh, let me say everybody else now. All right, good evening, Buxton. Good evening. Good evening, Big Red. Yes, I see you. Get enough sales tonight. I know you don't make enough noise in the market, so you're going to get plenty sale tonight. I think we are ready to roll because we are on the roll. We are on the roll, and we are going down the road because we have a date with destiny. We have a date with destiny. Destiny. Who the by that is Busho? Are you believe me? I know the Busho Banton story. Destiny. Busho Banton. I had the pleasure of interviewing him years ago when he came out with this Till Shiloh album. That's long time. Some of you didn't born yet. Some of you all did not born at that time. Good evening. We have still justice for Adriana. I think we are all ready to roll now. So let's bring our guests in. I think they're all in. We have an all-star team, WPA all-star team tonight. Good evening to you, gentlemen.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. Good evening to the audience.
Brother Tacuma, Brother Deon.
Yes, good evening. Good evening to you, and good evening to all who are listening online.
Okay. So we, Brother Ogun, you have to unmute yourself. Technology and these.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Hines and your viewers.
Well, we are ready to roll. As I said in the introduction, we're walking on two legs. We're fighting still to ensure that the elections are above board. Only today, as I came on air here, I understand the 3 opposition nominated commissioners have walked out. Again, remember last week they walked out from that meeting. They walk out again today. and the other side is creaming blue. They're sabotaging the preparation for the elections. But as I said, we are fighting to ensure that the elections can be as free and fair as possible, while at the same time trying to win an election. So we are fighting the PPP. We are fighting against rigged elections. Are we depanam? Are we depanam? But of course, no turning back because we are moving forward. Let me start by asking each of you to tell us from your perspective in the WPA, and I assume you all are speaking tonight as WPA, not as you all port. If you all talking port, Brother Deon, you with us? You are giving us the WPA perspective tonight. Let me start with Deon Abrams. What is the significance of this election in 2025 from the standpoint of the Working People's Alliance?
Well, it's significant primarily because the elections are going to give Guyanese a chance to remove a government that really doesn't have Guyana as the focus of interest. They are pretty occupied with personal gains, satisfying people who are spending the money that we are supposed to be using for the betterment of the people of Guyana, only to fill the pockets of a few. It's significant because we have the challenge of racism and discrimination. The administration clearly demonstrates that it is only favoring one set of people and that it is prepared only to give crumbs to the others, Amerindians and Africans and so on, even East Indians who are not aligned to them. I was just looking at a clip where Melly Mel is talking about a young police officer who was stationed somewhere in the Northwest. And because he shook the hands of Mohammed, who was going somewhere up to the Essequibo, he was transferred to Crabwood Creek, Molson Creek, and demoted from his position as an immigration person to an ordinary officer. Right, so we have these kinds of discrimination. We're fighting extrajudicial killings, the Forgenet and so on from Linden, or Randy Samuels here from Buxton. Every time the PDP is in power, people die because they use the police force as a weapon of destruction against the masses. And so there's a plethora of things. Within the mining sector, another clip is online today, which I shared, where an African guy is screaming. He has papers from the court barring the GGMC from, interfering with his property, and they barged in on him and fetched away his generator, basically bullying him off the land. And this is happening in the interior where people who have concessions, the people with logging concessions are the transportation on the road is, give me a second, let a noise pass. Yes, the people with logging concessions are being bullied into giving up parts of their concessions to people chosen by the PPP for mining. If they do not give their consent, they have to give no objections in writing, to the heads of the GTMC, giving them the authority to take their land and to give it to people who are close to the PPP so that they can mine on the logging concessions. They cannot resist. If they resist, the entire concession is taken away from them. These are the kinds of advantage that are taking place in this country against people who are striving to make a living, to live in a society that should be, giving them that privilege to live. We are losing, Dr. Hines, a whole number of teachers to the United States right now. Every day they are signing up and they are migrating in droves simply because we have a government with an economy that is supposed to be the fastest growing economy in the Caribbean and this hemisphere. But people are still scrunting for survival.
People are still scrunting for survival. Deon Abrams, chairperson of the Working People's Alliance, here tonight, weighing in on why 2025 election is so significant. Some of you all have beaten me. You've beaten us. I want to thank Brother UB, for your donation. I want to thank Sister Natalie for her donation, and my countrywoman from Buxton, Linda. I want to thank you, Linda, for your donation. I want to say every cent that is donated to Politics 101 is going into our election campaign. Every cent. We have not launched the WPA campaign fund yet, but I want to say that every cent that you all donate, I know some of you, every month you send in your donation to help this program. From here on, every cent we are going to donate to the campaign. The handwriting is on the wall. This government must fall. Brother, thank you for your donation. Sister Linda, thank you for your donation. Sister Natalie, always a trooper, every month without fail. Without fail. And she's very democratic. Dr. Hines, half for Politics 101, half for Buxtonian Guyanese Morning Time. You can't get more democratic than that. Thank you all so much. And we will launch the WPA campaign fund in the coming days. But I want to say every cent that you all donate to Politics 101 is going into the campaign to remove this government at the coming election. We're going down the road. Rohit Kanhai, you came into the WPA when there was that powerful slogan, which I'm using tonight as the title for this program, People's Power, No Dictator. Bring that of the 1970s, People's Power, No Dictator. Bring that slogan into the 2025 election for us.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. Basically, that slogan was a clear cry, a battle cry, that Guyana could not move forward under the conditions that existed at the time. We had experienced a crisis. Dr. Thomas had written a pamphlet, The Crisis of the Working People, as early as 1973. So by time 1979, when the WPA came into being, we were fighting against a whole background that started from the 1966 period. We saw the evolution into what we call a dictatorship.
Right, and so bring that now into 2025. We understand the context of that time in the 70s, but we know into 2025. Bring the people's power, no dictator, and give it life in 2025.
It is clear, exceptionally clear, that we fought every inch of the way from 1979 to 1992 for free and fair elections.
And we are still fighting for free and fair elections.
We are now where things have become their opposite. The PPP is now the obstacle for free and fair elections. And the battle we waged during that period for free and fair elections, we are called upon to wage the very battle today for free and fair elections. The conditions we extracted between 1989 to 1992 that allowed us to have free and fair elections, those very conditions are being blocked today. So the struggle is greater today for free and fair elections, and the role of GCOM in preventing a semblance, just a semblance of a mechanism to allow for free and fair election is totally missing. So that battle is on. We have to, as you said, wage two battles at the same time. The fight for free and fair elections and the fight for a victory. Now, in terms of your dialectic, we were taught, Guyanese wise, that you can't suck cane and blow whistle at the same time. Now, we are confronted with that reality. This elections is about the survival of Guyana as a nation and the survival of the Black populace as a people with dignity. Those two things are intertwined in these elections, and there is no turning back. It's victory and nothing else in terms of fighting for freedom and human dignity.
Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, your colleague Rohit Kanhai, co-leader of the WPA, has given us the duality of the survival of Guyana as a nation and the restoration of the dignity of the African. Expand, elaborate, contribute to that thesis.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hines. We in the Working People's Alliance for quite a while have been paying keen attention to the situation in Guyana, particularly after the country became an oil-producing state. And we had the advantage of having in our midst Brother Clive Thomas, who is an expert economist and expert in oil matters. And he very early pointed to us that everything in Guyana with oil will change, whether we like it or not. So we had a kind of kickstart in front of other political parties as to the reality of oil and Guyana becoming a petrol state. And when we look and factor in the dynamics of that petrol state, and when we reflect on the present situation of the various ethnic groups in the country, it became clear to us that the African community and the Amerindian community are the most vulnerable communities in the context of a fast and rapid economic development that was pending in the nation. And we in the Working People's Alliance became very clear that politics has to be fashioned to take on board those objective realities. And while you could talk about development in a kind of more abstract way, for us, development has to be spoke about in a more concrete way, how it actually play out and how it actually affects ordinary people, the great majority of people who are really the owners of the country. And when we look at how the PPP managed the economy soon after they came to power back in 2020 after the 2020 elections, it became crystal clear to us that our examination and the conclusions that we came to were correct, and that in the present situation, while we have to do two things, save Guyana, but we feel we have to more importantly, in terms of our politics, try to save the African community, and in saving the African community, you will be saving Guyana. We don't make a separation between the two. But there is a way in which a country matters are beyond what one particular ethnic group do or don't do. And in a sense, a country's national interest is best taken care by all the people and all the ethnic groups in the country. But they have moments in history where a particular ethnic group or ethnic groups, and in the case again, Amerindians and Africans, are faced in the possibility of being economically and socially wiped out with the dynamics of oil and gas, unless the politics of the country take recognition of that and seek to raise that as the principal objective of politics and state power. And we in WPA will argue that given the context of our history, saving the African people and the Amerindian people equal saving Guyana. The two cannot be separated. And it's in that context, we believe that these elections are defined and are not ordinary elections, simply a choice between X party and Y party. This is, as we said, the African community and Amerindian community have an appointment with their destiny on September 1st. And that is our approach to these elections.
Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, while I have you here, let me pose this question and then I will go from you to Deon and Rohit. WPA is, from the beginning, made very clear that it is sacrificing its own party individuality, and that it is prepared to say more than a year ago that it is going into the election as part of a coalition. It didn't raise the question of how many seats it would get. It didn't raise the question of presidential candidacy. It said categorically that its first step is going into the election as a coalition. Why the WPA took that position? Why it did not do as convention suggests, that you first talk about your party and then you move out to coalition? Why the WPA said coalition first rather than party first?
Because the WPA was very conscious of the realities of Guyanese politics and the great sensitivity in the opposition constituency to which the African community is a major part. And remember, the opposition was out of power for over 23 years. And when the APMU plus AFC coalition came into office, it is the AFC that brought the government down in a premature end. And that creates a lot of problems, for our constituents, and people begin to lose faith in political parties and political actors. And the WPA was very conscious that if we were to defeat the PPP, our best chance is a wide, broad-based coalition, including all the major political forces and parties. And defeating the PPP has to be the priority of politics in the country at this moment. And so the WPA knew that we were likely to have a contestation between the WPA and the AFC for who going to be the second force in a broad-based coalition. And we were very open. And we didn't want to we don't want to do anything that will give the AFC an excuse not to join the coalition. And the WPA took the approach that we're going to commit early to a coalition, so we give some assurance to the broad mass of opposition support base, and we give the AFC space to redeem themselves after they have brought down the government. We felt that the AFC politics would be one of redemption, that they would have seen that they owe it to the opposition support base to correct what Shanjadas did. If we are to take their position that they had nothing to do with it, then the leadership of the AFC had a duty in these elections, okay, to redeem itself. And as practical political people, we want to give them the space so that they could do it in a dignified way without being pressured. And those are some of the considerations that the WPA took in our approach to the elections. And you will see it proved correct, because the AFC made it very clear they didn't want any discussions with the WPA. But we don't worry. But we took them and their interests on board in our political action, and to leave enough space and room for them. So it's two different political cultures. But the bottom line for all politics, regardless of what school you come from, there are some things that don't change. Your politics either got to be for yourself, your party, or the masses of people. And the WPA politics have always been for the masses of Guyanese people. And when the crunch time comes, is when you know where political parties and political leaders and political leadership stands. It's when the crunch time comes. And the WPA have, in our judgment, did everything in our power to accommodate the AFC and to keep open the door for a broad-based coalition. And I think that there's little more we could do.
Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, co-leader of the Working People's Alliance there, giving the WPA's reason for very early taking a strong position on coalition politics. Thank you very much, Yvonne, for asking about Dr. Rupnarayan. Dr. Rupnarayan has been experiencing some health challenges, which prematurely sent him into semi-retirement. He is in good spirits, but dealing with health challenges that come with aging. We shall certainly pass your regards to him. He continues to take an interest in what is happening in Guyana. Given his health challenges, he has had to take a back seat in terms of active politics. Deon, how disappointed or not disappointed is the WPA that we have not been able to put together the broadest coalition possible at this hour?
Dr. Hines, we are very disappointed because, as Brother Tacuma said, our interest is in not self-serving, but putting the nation first. And we understand that every vote that goes against the PPP is a vote for redemption, the redemption of Guyana, and taking the country out of the clutches of this kleptocracy. And so our entire thrust was to ensure that we garner and galvanize the opposition into a grand coalition that we know would have brought home the victory to the people of Guyana, and that would have allowed us to be able to transform this country into one where the populace can be the true beneficiaries of the benefits from oil and our gold and our diamonds and so on. It is indeed sad that uh, there is this, I don't know whether it's personal or what is driving it. There are several views that one, it's a class thing, and that the middle class somehow believe that they can galvanize or around themselves and become part of the decision making process so that eventually we can return to that state of minority government. But a minority government is not an ineffective in terms of continuing to be corrupt. And with an administration that we have seen doesn't play by the rules, being in a minority will mean simply that they will find every avenue to continue to steal the resources of the country, to continue to manipulate every facet of life of Guyanese people, continue to trample on the rights of the ordinary man, continue to deny us a good life, which they thought that they're interested in. And so when we put all of these things together, we wonder whose interest it is that the people who have decided that they are going to go it alone, minus the Grand Coalition, whose interests are they really serving? Is it Guyana's interest, or what is so personal about them? And as Brother Ogun said, the AFC needed to redeem itself. They brought down the last government, and many of them, in my own opinion, have a feeling that the growth with some of those individuals is because of their own behavior under the APNU AFC. They probably are afraid that because they were called out for their actions, that they may not have a place in the current. If if within the coalition we were able to win, that they may find themselves not given the kind of authority that they want or position that they. And so there are several things that are going through people's minds. But I think when you listen to people on the ground, that the people understand what is required, and the madness, in them will be put aside, and they will understand the nature of Guyanese people when the elections are actually held. It's a tragedy.
Deon Abrams, chairperson of the Working People's Alliance, we want to make it very clear that the Working People's Alliance, the WPA, remains hopeful that the AFC joins the coalition. Sister Camille, if our sentiments come over as I pass in the AFC, I would like to apologize on behalf of the Working People's Alliance, because that is not our objective. Because we feel that the AFC is critical to the opposition doing well in the elections, and we continue, as we say, our political strategy included the AFC. We are, of course, expressing our disappointment that the AFC's political calculation did not include the WPA. But that is the nature of politics. We have been around politics for a long time, and we understand these things. So, again, I apologize if our sentiments come over as bashing the WPA. You can't be bashing the AFC. You can't be bashing people that you intend to work with. And we, have never had, party to party relations with the AFC, but we have never been enemies of the AFC, and that continues to be so. Rohit, let me ask you to deal with a thorny issue, and that is the issue of the presidential candidacy. Our constitution demands that each slate puts up a presidential candidate. Prime ministerial candidacy is not a constitutional requirement, but the presidential candidacy. And from all indications, the Grand Coalition faltered on that question of the presidential candidacy. Why that did not? Why was the presidential candidacy not an obstacle for the WP?
First of all, we always fought for a united people. We did not believe in one-man leadership. We always felt a collective leadership would represent the Guyanese people as a whole. In terms of the immediate question, we have felt that we are willing to subordinate our role to that of the greater good, insofar as the PNC is recognized as the major political party. It would be totally disrespectful of that party to claim a status we do not have, nor do not possess the right to do what? What are we supposed to do? Impose our will? How do we do that? We can only acknowledge the reality that the PNC is the major party. It has been subjected to ridicule by the government. Its role in parliament has been totally disregarded, and it now has a fight for its life in the coming elections. We need unity. Now, I would like to point out this, Dr. Hines. This election is not about Mr. Norton. It's not about Mr. Hughes. It's not about Dr. Hines. It's not about political parties. It is about the survival of this nation and the survival of the Black race with dignity. It is always the oppressed race that leads the fight for freedom. The other races, insofar they feel comfortable with their existing party, they will not lead the struggle for freedom. It is always the task and the burden of the oppressed race to fight for the liberation, not only for themselves, but for all. That is the burden imposed upon the most oppressed sector of the population. And right now, that sector is the Black population. We are fighting for a unity of all the parties. We give each party its due respect and weight in the political race, but our goal is clear, very clear. We will not compromise on fighting for the working class of this country. And right now, they are under attack. And a broad-based coalition is certainly the best way of moving forward. I would like to point out that in 1992, as the editor of the Caribbean Daylight paper, you should have seen the front page of Daylight, WPA poised for electoral victory. This was in 1992. The masses have a mind of their own. The masses felt their best survival was to split the votes. The blacks went to the PNC. They saw their political survival, their defense against the PPP was to rally behind the PNC. And the Indian masses went for the PPP. They felt their political survival would be better in the hands of a PPP victory. The WPA was wiped out in that process. So the masses have a logic of their own. The masses in the coming election understand that logic, that they are fighting for their survival. And we have seen that on the night of the Adriana situation where the masses came out and asserted their right in that particular matter. It has scared the regime that the masses has now reached a consciousness that has transformed the political equation in Guyana. And the masses will sweep aside any party that threatens a victory. I'm very clear about that. So if the leaders do not lead to fulfill the aspiration of the masses, they will be swept aside. This is not about political parties. This is about those who will fight for the liberation of the most oppressed sector of the Guyanese community, which right now as we speak is the Black community.
Brother, thank you very much for those comments, Brother Rohit. They are, and I'm very glad you keep repeating the notion that there are some fundamental issues that are riding on this election that makes it not a run-of-the-mill election. Brother Ogunseye, you and I and Rohit and Deon came later on. We have been at this thing for a long time. You longer than I was. And I have had the occasion to say on this program and maybe other programs that I've been on that I have seen sentiment for unity at an election before. But I have never seen a groundswell in at least half of the nation for coalition, for coming together. And I don't want to use the word coalition because they're not using it. They're using unity. They're using the word unity. I have never seen such a groundswell in part of the nation for unity around an election. And if you agree with that observation, try to help us understand what's happening, Brother Ogun.
Your observation is very accurate. It shows the desperation that the PPP government have pushed half of the population into, and the opposition constituency is conscious that this elections is no ordinary elections, that the whole existence as a viable community is at stakes. And for them, they are not in the mood to engage in political experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
They want a clear, simple, straightforward fight. The PPP boasts of having the greatest electoral machinery. The PPP is in power. The PPP controls GCOM. Everything is loaded against the opposition. And the masses, common sense tell them that your best chances to defeat the PPP is unquestionable unity. And you have to postpone some things in order to get this victory. So the masses are clear that never before in the history of the country, the survival of a people in recent times is tied up in an election. You know, it's a funny thing. Even when we had the conflict in the 60s, where the country break down into violence, and a lot of that was manipulation from external forces and so forth and so forth. It wasn't just simply an internal dynamic. It's an internal, external dynamic. But even in that situation, I think both sides never felt that losing an elections mean to wipe out the other side. I have lived long enough to recognize the shifting politics in the country. And I think the African consciousness on this matter is not by accident. I mean, they have seen how the economy developed, whether or not you want to blame the PPP or not, whether you want to blame simple economic structures that we inherit from the colonial period, the end result is that Africans and Amerindians together own less than 10% of the wealth of the country. And with this new injection of tremendous wealth from oil and the inevitability that it will attract more and more investors, not only in the oil sector, but also in the non-oil sector. And people come in the country to engage in business. There's no significant African and Amerindian business houses to take advantage of the dynamics of expanding Guyanese economy. And Africans and Amerindians are conscious of that. I tell you, a lot of ordinary young Africans, young people, they stop me and say, Brother Ogunseye, why is it Indians got all the business and Africans ain't got no business? Nobody had to tell them. I mean, their life experience, they walk around the place. They see the development in the country. They recognize that there's uneven development that is unprecedented. And their young minds inevitably raise the question that something is wrong that will require answer. And the African people as a community have been toying with this matter for a very long time. And they have been hopeful that politics would at some point address the matter. And what they have been seeing from independence to the present, that politics have failed to address the matter and their conditions are getting worse and worse. So they're entrapped in this political arrangement, winner take all politics. And they recognize that if they don't win these elections, they're in big, big trouble. And they may be forced to resort to unconventional forms of struggle, which no people want to do easily. And there's a collective consciousness in African community that are weighing these options. And that is why there's a big push in the African community and in the wider opposition community for a coalition unity in order to defeat the PPP so we could achieve the objectives with the least possible pain. Because there's a second resolve in the African community. Now, we're not going to squander the sacrifice of our ancestors and accept domination in Guyana. We're going to fight it, regardless of the elections. And this is what we're trying to avoid. And that is I bring popular consciousness and sentiments, okay, to present it to you in a political way that people could understand. You see, the masses have their own way of internalizing these things. And it is we who have to listen to them, have to bring that interpretation to national consciousness, even if we are accused of being racist, even if we are accused of being revolutionaries, even if we are being accused of being reckless. History will judge. History will judge who was true to whom.
History will judge who were true to whom. Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, being hailed there tonight as a revolutionary, and when Guyanese people call you a revolutionary is one of the greatest honors that can be bestowed on you. We in this part of the world, the Caribbean, we have a sense of revolution and revolutionaries that may be unparalleled in other parts of the world. So when one is designated, one is called a revolutionary, is one of the highest honors. Deon, your party has been laying out here tonight a scenario whereby we are arguing that these elections are not simply about counting votes. These elections are about something much deeper, something much fundamental in the society. And as we move into the election campaign, messaging becomes very important. At our press conference yesterday, we made two very important observations. First, we said that we do not discern any change in the ethnic voting patterns. Hence, this thing about crossover votes is a delusion. Second, we said that these elections may well come down to which side is able to turn out its support base. I've been inundated by calls from people who know the PPP well and who have been calling to say to me, Dr. Hines, you got it correct. The PPP strategy was first to try to win African votes. They have now realized that the chances of that are very slim. And so their campaign now is to frustrate Africans and to make them feel that the opposition cannot win the election, and so they will stay home. How does the WPA intend to tackle that challenge on the campaign trail, Deon Abrams?
Well, the WPA has to...
the WPA will. You're not advising them. You are part of the WPA. Go ahead. We're getting some difficulty from you there, Deon.
People, we don't have to explain to people again the conditions under which they have been living. They have experienced that every day, and they understand what is happening with these elections. In the 2020 elections, our difficulty was people were dissatisfied and they did not come out. Now they have seen the result of their staying home these past 5 years. And so I guess that by now they should understand that that mistake is not one that they should make again. And we have to reinforce that in their consciousness, that staying away from the elections is not an option that they should choose. The other thing
Deon, yes, we have to enforce. How is the WPA? How does the WPA plan to enforce that? What is it you are going to tell them to say, look, staying home is not an option? Saying staying home is not an option is not. You have to give them reasoning, and you have to give them an incentive not to stay home. How is the WPA?
I was just explaining that, Doc. I was just explaining that they made a mistake in 2020 and stayed home, that they are suffering the consequences of that through discrimination, through murder of their children, through not being given a proper livelihood because of the withholding of proper salaries I mean, the draconian laws that have been put in place to suppress them and oppress them, to beat them down so that they have no courage to on their own behalf. All right. So this is at our meeting at the Boston Line Club. These are the thoughts that we brought to them to show them that what is happening to them under the PPP, if they do not come out in their numbers and vote when the elections are held, that the pressures will be 10 times greater. They will be giving the PPP the license to hang them. And so we have no option. The other thing is that we will be telling the young people in particular, because I have a sense that from my interaction with young people, that they are still not focused on what direction they should take. They are looking at, some other young person who come into the fray, but they don't understand the political dynamics and the fact that this is a time for solidifying and uniting behind one party, one grouping that can bring the beef home. That if they go
How widespread is that among young people? These are the young people who led the uprising and in the wake of the Adriana thing.
They have led the uprising, but they still have a certain gap in their consciousness that we have to break.
But I understand that gap in their consciousness, but what I want to hear from you is how is the WPA, what is the WPA going to say to them? What is your approach to them? You have identified the problem. What is it you are saying different to them? You just said that you will tell them the PPP record in the last 5 years was dismal and it worked against them. Is there anything else that you would direct at them? Are you going to point them to their own history, as in the case of Black people, their own history?
I can't, you have your own consciousness and your own thinking. I can't go into your mind to know what you want me to say.
No, I am asking you.
Yeah, but sometimes you make it seem as though you want me to say what you want to say.
No. I am asking you. I am asking you what the WPA intends to do.
So, as I was pointing out, we need to deal with the even if it's a few of them, because every vote counts. And so we have to educate the older folks. We will speak to the older people within the society and convince them to speak to their children, sit them down, make them understand what is at stake. We also will be gathering young people, calling occasions where young people are going to come, and we will have that interaction with them. As we go about the streets, Brother Ogun talked about his interaction with, we meet young people every day. Only on Saturday, one young man was saying that, I put in the vote behind this individual, and I asked him why. And I explained to him, the lady that was next to me said that's because they don't really understand, and people are not explaining to them the history about this country and the understanding of the political dynamics of Guyana. And I sat him down there and I had a conversation with him. And I intend to keep that conversation going. So we have to do individual work with young people. We have to bring them together, make them understand what is at stake, that this is about them and their future. And so that is our task that we are going to undertake. It's a challenge, but we have to deal with it. And surprisingly, this disconnect is not only with young people. A friend of mine was telling me about someone who is supposed to be educated. A person who is in the education sector. And that person who is not even conscious of what really is at stake in these elections, and is trying to convince people that some other direction should be taken. So So
Go ahead.
it's a broad a task because we want to capture every single vote that can make this happen.
Yeah. Rohit, the phenomenon of the Mohammed factor. I want to ask you. There seems to be a superficial analysis of the Mohammed factor, and then there is a deeper analysis of the Mohammed factor. All right. Are we being too hard on people who are in the age of social media? With Mohammed out there with his Lamborghini and he and the president showing text messages. Are we confusing people's fascination with the theatrics of that with real deep political conviction? What's your thought? And then I'll go to Ogun on that.
I think, one, it reveals a level of corruption that exists at the very top. That's an affirmation of what we already know. When those at the top fight among themselves or between themselves, let them go ahead. Let them enjoy their role there. We know enough from the fact that corruption is rampant at the top. It's only when they come into some degree of disagreement, then they spill the beans on each other. What is more important for us is that we keep our eye on the prize. We know what the task is, and we should not be distracted by it. We have to fight for unity amongst the Black race. Let the Indian race, if they want to fight among themselves, so be it. If the ruling class wants to fight among itself, so be it. We should not be distracted from it. Now, I want to point out to you, just 2 days ago, somebody asked me, a very close person, why I associate myself with David Hines. He's a racist. Now, I had to explain to them that when a Black man fights for his people, what makes him a racist? If an Indian man were to fight for his people, what makes him a racist? Now, we're caught in a curious dialectic with the PPP. The PPP talks unity, saying it wants a Black Indian unity. But it's not unity they're fighting for. They're fighting to divide the Black race. That's what they call unity. Some of you come over and join us, and that is unity. No, that is a division, a deliberate division of divide and rule of the Black race. If that makes you a racist, to unite the Black race to fight against oppression, then I want to be a racist too. If that's the definition of racism, you have every right to unite the Black race against oppression.
Rohit Kanhai saying it there as frank as you can get. As frank as you can get. Brother Ogun, are we overreading the curiosity, especially of African youth, in this theatrics that I am referring to, the Mohammed theatrics? Are we overreading that to mean that they're not conscious of their historical duty around this election?
We, the WPA, have been spending quite a lot of time, thinking this thing through. because we have to think out all aspects of elections. And the WPA don't rule out the importance of any actor in the elections if that actor seems to be able to get some kind of public notice. And it's clear that Mohammed have got some notice. But there's still some gray points. For us in the WPA, the Mohammed factor will really only become a factor when in nomination day, he put up a slate and actually entered the elections in hard, real political assessment. That is when you're really, going to know whether the Mohammed would be a factor in the elections. Because declaring a willingness to enter the elections is different from actually putting up a slate and to waging a campaign. And the slate is even more important than the campaign, because if you put up a slate, you're in the elections. Now, the social media have created some of its own logic. And they got this social media politics. And a lot of people, form opinions based upon what they see is happening on social media. And we would not dismiss that what is happening on social media is not a reflection of some level of objective reality. It is a reflection of some level of object, but it's not a total rejection of the whole reality. And elections and election politics are won by what happened on election day. You could be as popular as you like a day before elections. And when people go in front of the ballot box and pick up the ballot paper, what they do at that point is what going to determine the elections and your future. We, the WPA, know that very well. We know it very well. And I don't want to wish Mr. Mohammed bad luck, election disaster, but I know two things. The PPP will go after him like a lion, and they're going to throw at Mohammed every ammunition they have in the arsenal. The question is whether the Mohammeds are prepared to take the barrage and to continue the fight. That is still up in the air.
That is still.
But one more point. But when it comes to the actual voting, I can tell you this. The campaign will determine and to polarize the whole elections. And what we're seeing happening on social media, 2 weeks of the elections, you're going to see the difference. The thing will transform when the campaign start, the reality can kick in. And then you're going to know where people stand. And Guyanese are masters of that.
Thanks.
Yes.
I from the outset, I had reservations, and I still do, about the Mohammed, whatever, I don't want to call it a charade or anything. But I looked at the elections past, and I noted on my Facebook page, I posted these things, that every time elections come around, there seems to be some friction within the PPP that creates a force that apparently is suggesting that it's going against the PPP. We saw that happening with Ralph Ramkaran and the likes of the Amerindian guy, Schumann, and all of them coming together to create a team that contested the elections in 2020. And where did that seat go? Subsequent to the results of the election, it went straight into the bosom of the PPP. And so I expressed doubt about the Mohammed Jagdeo kind of confrontation. And I am saying that the essence of whether this is not a charade, or will be revealed in the slate. As Ogun said, he's not concerned about the slate as much, but that slate will tell me whether this is, another attempt at separating the black vote. Because when Muhammad started this campaign, he was only going to the black communities and the depressed African communities, which sent to my mind, something that says this is in keeping with the PPP's plan to split the African vote and to weaken the opportunities, the chances of the APNU WPA or APNU AFC winning the elections. So that, as Ogun said, the PPP, if Mohammed does have a true friction with them, will go all out against him. But we have to go to our people and make them understand that this is not a time to split hairs, that we want a victory, and we have to get it by a consolidated effort of all those who are against the PPP and the kinds of rulership that they have been practicing in this country. And that goes for everybody. My problem is that, lots of Indians are complaining. They are dissatisfied. They don't come out in public and say, but they are dissatisfied. And that dissatisfaction, our problem is that the trust is an issue, right? That we don't believe that we can trust another to give us the salvation we deserve. We have to break that barrier. If we can still work towards that, so that there is a consolidated effort of all the forces, the Amerindians, the dissatisfied Indians, everybody who want to see the back of the PPP. They did it in 2015 when they voted in support of the AFC because of the AFC joining the coalition. And they can do it again. And we guarantee that this time around that, that some of the folly that took place during that time will not happen. That everyone will benefit from the victory against the PPP.
Deon Abrams, chairperson of the WPA, speaking on the Mohammed factor. Clearly, based on our discussion here tonight, these elections are throwing up some very interesting dynamics. So we have the new dynamics throwing themselves up in the age of social media. And we have the conventional politics, which continue to define our landscape. Whether the clash of the conventional politics and the social media dimensions will bring anything new, we shall see. We've been talking to members of the WPA here tonight and trying to get their perspectives on things. Parties like the WPA come out of a particular tradition, a tradition of the 1970s, a tradition of revolution and transformation, and not necessarily a tradition of conventional electoral politics. And it's always interesting to hear parties like these give their take on conventional politics. I still believe that the gap between so-called revolutionary politics and conventional politics has closed somewhat, but there remain some characteristics that define them and that keep them apart. We shall see. Rohit, your closing thoughts, then we go to Ogun, and then Deon will close us out.
Dr. Hines, I find it absurd that any race on planet Earth can teach the black man about oppression. He has lived it. He knows what it is as a people, as a race. Now, Indians may have cultural differences with blacks. They may have religious differences with blacks. But when you look at yourself, you, me, in the mirror, first and foremost, you see, hopefully, a human being. You identify yourself as such. When you look at another person of a different race, a different culture, what do you see? Do you see a person entitled to the same rights, respect that you have for yourself? Do you see the other as a it or a thou? Do you see the other as sacred a person as you are? Would you value them the way you value yourself? If we cannot look at the other and respect them, then we are dehumanizing them. And that is the reality we have to deal with in Guyana. Across races, we look at each other as it's. We don't see each other as thou, as precious human being. And we have to get past that hurdle. With the Adriana case, you see clearly that the Indian community does not value that child's life as much as the Black community values that child life. I've listened to Indian people, and they're willing to accept the explanation given by the government in terms of that girl's life. And I find that appalling. Until we can see each other's life as precious, we will be at each other's throat, and only the rulers at the top will benefit from that.
Rohit Kanhai, co-lead of the WPA. Tacuma, your closing thoughts.
I want to be extremely frank with the country, and particularly with the African community. These elections will determine what will happen to Guyana from here onwards, one way or the other. These elections will demonstrate the political maturity of every section of the Guyanese people, and particularly it's a test of the political maturity of the African community. Whether after many decades of trying to shake off the shackles of colonialism, whether as a people we have understand anything about nation building and survival. And I want to say that we, the WPA, will urge in the WPA APMU coalition that we carry two lines of politics. We have to have two campaigns. I don't think that this is a normal elections where you could campaign simply in the conventional way alone. While we have to fight with the conventional niceties, both in our logic and our arrangement, we have to have some groups that could go and engage in trench warfare in the ghettos, in every single inner community in the town and the village, and to promote a kind of politics that have not been seen in this country for a long time. We have to bring the ordinary people into the political affair by discussing with them and giving assurances that we understand the reality and that a victory would lead to significant transformation in their reality. We have to tell the Rastafari community no more a Rasta man will enter into jail because he got a little piece of marijuana. No more the police will go in our ghetto, our communities and extract, okay, a young man at the point of guns. We have to say no, that we will insist for new relationships and new laws that define the dignity of every section of the society. We have to commit that no person, man or woman, after a year or two of coalition government will go to sleep hungry. It will end. That we will put things in place, not only the cash transfer, but we will break down the community and put economic and social structures that tells me every single thing that happened in a locality. We must know who in working, who in eating, every single thing. And we must deliver to people. It must be a new kind of politics. It has to be a politics that we promise people delivery, and we will continue the fight for delivery at the elections and after the elections, whether we win or lose. Even if we win, we have to continue a popular politics to make sure that ordinary people could understand that what they get out of the political process depend upon their vigilance and their ability, the willingness, okay, to call politicians and government to book. And that is the kind of politics we got to wage, as while the conventional aspect of the campaign wage the conventional politics. There have to be a gutter politics. And I'm using gutter in the positive term, in the sense of politics of the ordinary people, in the poor, in all of those ghettos and on the developed community, and working with them to not only get their vote, but to give them a clear commitment of concrete things that will quickly begin to transform their reality.
Brother Tacuma Ogunseye. Deon Abrams, your closing
We
thoughts.
also have to be able to erase from our legislation those laws that the PPP would have passed to suppress people, to accuse them of terrorism for standing for their rights. Laws that give them the right to seize people's lands and to, defy the idea that Africans have ancestral lands. Nandalal got up and said that this business of ancestral lands doesn't have a place in Guyana, and it's only something that was manufactured recently by Ipadaji and so on. So, in passing through Buxton, building a road at the back of Buxton, Adriana Thomas mentioned that they want to take 300 feet from the road, every side of the road. So when they're done there, they basically corral the best portion of the land to give it to their own people. So this kind of, callous disregard for people is something that we have to make everyone understand has to factor in our discussion and our evolution as a new nation with a new kind of governance. There are too many things that have happened. Look, I don't want to be personal in relation, but so many people have lost, assets to the PPP, and they continue that right to dispossess people in the interior, the Amerindians, the miners, the people with timber concessions, as I said earlier, and then the executions, all of the promises in Linden for reports to be presented for people who were shot. Adriana's, the results of the autopsy only came out after the body was flown out. So they make promises to you and they never fulfill them, right? And so all of the ordinary people, regardless of who you are, need to be conscious that in order to defeat the PPP, that the most viable option is to consolidate behind the APNU WPA coalition to win these elections and to get rid of this blight on our country.
Deon Abrams, chairperson of the Working People's Alliance, Rohit Kanhai, and Tacuma Ogunseye, co-leaders of the WPA. Thank you all so much for coming on tonight to Politics 101 and to give our audience an insight, a peep into the WPA's world as they prepare for this defining campaign for the 2025 elections. Thank you all very much, brothers.
Thank you for having us.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
And to you, the audience, you know we love you because we can't do this thing without all of us rubbing our shoulders together and recognizing our date with destiny. To all of you, again, stay firm. The young people say, stay woke, stand firm, believe that we can do this. That's where we start, in our belief that we can win this thing. Despite the odds against us, despite the noise, despite the crossings and the crossovers, despite all of that, we have seen them before. We have seen betrayal before. We have seen stubbornness before. But we've also seen the face of God. Freedom. The face of God. Freedom.